You're listening to the Wrestling Philosophy Show, where we talk wrestling perspectives and beliefs. Check us out on social media, including video shows on YouTube and audio on podcast platforms. In this show, we sit down with Coach Jim Gibson of Virginia Military Institute. Coach Gibson wrestled at Edinboro University and then started his coaching career at Clarion under Teague and Matt Dernlan. He then went on to Bucknell before becoming head coach at VMI in 2018. He discusses Edinboro and his underdog approach and how it fits his mentality from his high school path. He also goes into depth about VMI's similarities and differences compared to the service academies and their 98% job placement. Thank you, Coach, for your time. I joined here tonight with Coach Jim Gibson of VMI. How you doing tonight?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah. So fill our listeners in on kind of, you've had an awesome coaching path. You got a lot of experiences. Fill us in on that.
So I wrestled at Edinboro under Tim Flynn, and my first 4 years there, the assistant was Lou Roselli. So that was kind of my staff for most of my career. And then my senior year, Lou had moved on to a different position. He moved to Ohio State, and then Cliff Moore, who was Flynn's longtime assistant at Edinboro for a handful of years afterwards, was there my senior year. So just within my college career, I had some, pretty high-level coaches that I got to learn from. And then right out of college, I took a position as a graduate assistant at Clarion University, just down the road. I grew up in Western PA, kind of right on the Ohio border, about an hour from each of those schools. So pretty close proximity to home. And at Clarion, I was a graduate assistant for 2 years with Teague. And then I stayed on as a volunteer with the Clarion program until Teague left and went to American University. And then I was with Matt Dernlan in the same position at Clarion for a year before I moved on to Bucknell University in Central Pennsylvania as the head assistant, and spent 6 years at Bucknell under Dan Wernsberger. So, I've had some really good guys to learn from, some great experiences. Those guys definitely influenced, my approach to the sport, my approach to coaching. I think I've taken probably a little bit from all of those guys and kind of implemented into, how I tackle the business and try to get things done down here at VMI.
Nice. Anything looking back, as mentioned off here, I recently had Coach Hill on, Edinboro, Bruce Baumgartner, Roselli, Tim Flynn. That trio is amazing. Anything kind of looking back that you kind of like, wow, I didn't realize I learned this there?
I could go on for days about that. Those guys, that place at that time when I was there, and it was a special place. We took a lot of pride in, kind of, I don't want to use the term underdog, because we never thought like that. We were always, told to approach it like, we're the Big Ten program just at a small school, essentially, right? And that was kind of the mentality that we had. So I think to answer your question, that's probably, looking back, one of the most valuable things that I took from it was just because, you're not at a Big Ten school or an ACC school or a Big 12 school doesn't mean you can't win, right? And it was definitely a really cool mentality. It's something that fit me, right? I don't know, probably not too many people know this, my kind of high school career and kind of how that whole thing transpired. So going into high school, I had left my public school and moved to a private school in the same town. A little bit for wrestling, a little bit for academics, a little bit combination of both. But eventually, my junior year of high school, the school dropped the wrestling team.
Oh, wow.
They just basically said, hey, there's not enough kids to have the team. We're going to drop the program. And that kind of left me, in a tough spot. I had some options, I guess. One was to go back to my public school, which at the time, the wrestling program wasn't necessarily kind of what I was looking for. I could have obviously stayed at the school and not had a team, or tried to transfer, to another local school and dealt with the whole, possibility of being ineligible with the PIAA, et cetera. So, we ended up approaching the administration at this private school that I was enrolled in, and they did end up agreeing to let me continue to compete for the school, but just as kind of like a one-man team, right? I had no team. No dual meets, nothing like that. It was basically I wrestled in like 8 or 10 tournaments throughout the year, and then wrestled in the postseason and competed, at state tournament, etc. And I had success doing that. It forced me to mature really early.
Mhm.
I didn't have teammates there to hold each other accountable. It was just me at 15, 16 years old, making the choice that, hey, I wanted to be really good at wrestling, and kind of putting it all on my shoulders. So going back to my experience at Edinboro, not that it was similar. I had a team, but kind of the same mentality, right? Small school by ourselves type thing. And, it just resonated with me, and being close to home, that was important to me. So it was good. The whole experience up there, I can't speak highly enough. I mean, those guys, I think, probably made me the man that I am today, which, I have a lot of respect for Tim, and, his process, and just that little piece that he put in me. I think everywhere you go, I think that's what makes a good coach too, right? Is just that ability to, learn, and, you never have all the answers, right? I mean, you could be doing this for a long-term career and you never have all the answers. So I think you're always trying to learn from everyone that you come in contact with and across with. So it's good. Those guys, did a really great job.
Yeah, that's kind of why I started this to kind of learn as a coach, learn as a person. But going back to that, being the only guy on the roster, then getting to college, were there some hurdles? Kind of not do your own thing, but then you're thrown in there as a freshman. Was there some hurdles that you didn't see coming?
Yeah. I mean, I think, I think maybe developmentally a little bit, just from the wrestling side of things, I think was a little bit of a hurdle for me, right? You're all of a sudden around these really high level coaches, and not that, I mean, my dad and the guy that coached the high school, they know a lot of wrestling, and developed me really well. But then, you take it to a position where you have an Olympian in the room like Lou Roselli, and it was just obviously a different level. So I think developmentally, it took me a little bit of time to figure it out. But I think the work ethic and the mentality was there, so that was something that I had to thrive on, right? Because it took me a little longer to develop, from a technical skill wise, and kind of at that level. But that's the beauty about wrestling too, right? Is you get out of it what you put into it, and
Mm-hmm.
that's everyone. I don't think it I talk to my recruits about this here, right? And it's like, hey, when you get to college, it doesn't matter what you've done before. It matters, what you do from this point forward, and how much time you're willing to invest, how much you're willing to sacrifice and surrender to be really good at wrestling, and kind of live that lifestyle 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. I mean, you have to be able to do that in wrestling, right? You can play football and have a game the next day, and probably eat a couple slices of pizza and drink some Mountain Dew, and probably go play a pretty good football game. But in this sport, you have to be able to kind of walk that road that's less traveled compared to the road that everyone else travels to be really good. And sometimes that can be hard for college kids to do, right? When they have a lot of people pulling them in a lot of different directions, and some peers, or maybe even a teammate or two, right? That are saying,
Right.
hey, let's go do this instead of you know, go down this other path that's going to help you prepare to win wrestling matches.
Right, right. Actually, I'm from Ohio here, and the Kolodzik brothers, they had the similar path here in Ohio. They were the only only ones on their team, and obviously they excelled on and off the mat. And it sounds like you're doing the same. Um, you talked about recruits, and what you say to them. I guess I I'm not familiar with VMI. I
Sure.
guess I obviously heard of him, know
Yeah.
him. What VMI compared to a traditional university, and compared to the other branches of the
Yeah.
armed services? What's the differences and similarities?
So VMI, we are considered a senior military college. So you do live a kind of militaristic, Spartanistic lifestyle on a day-to-day basis. So that's
Okay.
ingrained in it, day to day. Probably the biggest thing that makes us different from the academies, like an Army or Navy or an Air Force, is those guys have a commitment to serve when they're done at school. So when they graduate, they get their diploma. They have to go do their time in the
Okay.
service branch, right? Here at VMI, you have that option. So when you graduate, you can commission into any branch of the service: Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines, or even the Coast Guard as an officer. Or you can get your diploma, move into the public sector, and get a regular job as well. So that's probably the biggest difference. But I think the day-to-day lifestyle is very similar to the academies. And then
Gotcha.
obviously from a more traditional school like a Bucknell, a Clarion, and Edinboro, is just that day-to-day lifestyle, right? That these guys, every second of their day is accounted for. So they know where they're supposed to be at, what they're supposed to be doing, at every hour, every minute, throughout the day. And I think from an athletic perspective, it's an advantage, right? Because they're not they don't have kind of that extra downtime to be doing something that they shouldn't be doing that's not going to help them
Right.
wrestling matches. They're
Right.
here to focus on their school and focus on their athletics, and then they have this military piece that they have to live every day. And it can be challenging, right? I mean, because they are pulled in a lot of different directions. It's they have to be able to time manage really well to be able to pack it all in the day, and then get up early in the morning and do it all over again. So it can be challenging, but I think deep down, if they really truly want to have high goals and be really good at the sport of wrestling, it's a great fit for guys that have that mentality.
Cool. Cool. No, that's good to know. Like I said, kind of familiar with it. I didn't know the differences, and that
Sure.
explains. So they kind of got the best of both worlds. It sounds like for
Yeah.
recruiting guys.
Sure, it's good for guys, right, that might be on the bubble of wanting to
Hmm.
make a career out of it. Maybe they want to go to a place like this to gain the experience and the education that it provides, a lot of leadership capabilities,
Hmm.
kind of honor, integrity, that sort of thing. And then, think they might want to make a career out of the military. They can get the experience for 4 or 5 years and then make that decision. They might get in here and be really set on, yeah, I want to go make this a career, but then spend 4 years and be like, you know what, I think I'm just happy with this experience and happy with what I learned. I just want to go and, take this and go get a regular job and make the most out of that. And then vice versa, right? You might get guys that get in here and say, hey, I don't have any plan on commissioning or making a career out of the military, but they get here and they thrive in this environment and atmosphere. And then all of a sudden, when they're getting ready to go, they're like, hey, I'm going in, I'm going to make a career out of this. Because, right, either way, we have a 98% job placement rate. I'm going to get in my
Oh
recruiting thing
wow.
a little bit for you.
Yeah. Go ahead. Go ahead.
But we have a 98% job placement rate. The average starting salary for our graduates is over $60,000 a year. So definitely a place of significant opportunity if you go into the public sector, right? But then on the vice versa, if you want to make a career out of the military, obviously that's a great path as well. So I mean, these guys, no matter which direction they choose, have a really good option. As long as they're willing to live that non-traditional lifestyle for 4 to 5 years.
Hmm. Right. No, and today, at 18, how many kids know what they want to do? You know
Sure.
what I mean? And
Yeah. Yeah.
that sounds like you got some options there. That's awesome. Do you have any setbacks that kind of propelled you and set you up for success?
Um, yeah. I mean, I'm a big believer in adversity, right? Like, I think
Hmm.
that's one of the biggest things that wrestling teaches is just how to overcome and deal with adversity. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
And just being put in a tough situation and then learning how to, persevere through it. There's nothing like this sport because when you're down in wrestling, right? I mean, I'm sure you've experienced this. When you're
Hmm.
down and you're at your lowest point, wrestling kicks you harder. You know what I mean?
Right.
It
Yeah.
doesn't let you go and rebuild back up in an easy path. I mean, it puts the pressure on even more. So, I think the capability of being able to stay positive and continue to, push forward in tough times and times of adversity is key, right? Because, think about it later on in life when these guys, these 18 to 22-year-old young men look back, they're going to have something to fall back onto because when you're a husband, when you're a father, you have a boss and job and bills to pay, they're going to run into a moment in life, right? That's really hard, that they're going to kind of that, oh crap moment. And how am I going to get through this? Well, they're going to have something because of the sport of wrestling to fall back onto and say, hey, I was put in a moment in my wrestling career where it was really tough. You know what I mean? Maybe they were losing matches they thought they were supposed to win, or they weren't having the success they thought they should be having because they are doing everything right. And they're like, I got through it then, I can get through this now. And, I think that's everyone that's been involved in the sport has had those moments. So for me, that's kind of what I take out of it. I think those are moments. And to name one particular one, I don't necessarily know if I have one like moment where I'm like, yeah, that was it. Right. But because those moments you can go on in days in the sport of wrestling about the tough times. Right. But you can probably count on both hands all the times in the sport of wrestling where you were like really pumped up, right? Where you're like, man, this is great. You won the state tournament, you placed at the national tournament, whatever it is, those moments are few and far between. But those valleys that you're in, on a day-to-day basis, you learn how to fight through and like I said, persevere through those moments. So, I think that, that word adversity really means a lot to me.
Cool. Cool. You have any unwritten rules of the sport?
um, I don't know. That's a tough one. I think,
Okay.
trying to think back a little bit, but I don't know.
Okay. Any rule changes or anything you could, anything that you see that could change or
Yeah, no,
could
I
change?
think, I love the push out thing. I think that's a piece that I think has helped the sport, but there's just so much, um, subjectivity to that rule, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where you see one official call it one way and another official call it another way. And I wish they would put a little bit more detail. And I don't know if it's a rule thing or if it's an official education thing or something to where we could get that rule a little bit more consistent with how it's called. And I don't know, like I said, I don't have all the answers, and I don't necessarily know if that's my job, but
Mm-hmm.
I would like someone to put a little bit more consistency into that rule so that we can see it called, more of the same way in certain positions. And I don't know if that means make it to where it's an automatic stall, make it to where it's an automatic point. I don't necessarily know if I agree with that either.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. I think it's a tough one. I like it. I think it does promote the action like they say it does. It makes it a little bit more strategic, right? You gotta kind of think out there a little bit more, and I think that's a big part of wrestling. People kind of miss out on sometimes too, is just wrestling IQ. When you're in the middle of a match, the best guys have really good wrestling IQ, and it's that makes it even more important to kind of know where you're at in the mat, what the score is, how much time's left, all of that goes into it. And so yeah, I think that's probably the one thing I would change.
Okay. Cool. You mentioned off air, Lexington, Virginia, pretty cool place.
Yeah,
Nate said you guys had some good kayak adventures on the Maori. Is that what it is?
yeah, the Maury
Yeah,
River.
in
Yeah,
Maury.
the old
Okay.
Maury.
Yeah. All right. Now I guess yeah. Let you get back on your recruiting.
All right.
What? I've never been, but he goes on and on about the Shenandoah Valley and all
Yeah, the
that.
kids. It's the kids
Yeah.
were in the middle of a pandemic, and you're not allowed to go and hang out in groups or whatever the rules are at the time. And
Mm.
we got he's got two young boys. I have a 6-year-old, and so we would just be like, "Yep, we're going, kids. We're going out on the river today. We're just gonna spend half a day on the Saturday just floating down the river, kayak and whatever." And the kids are still pretty young, and parts of the river, right, are you'll have like a really calm spot, and then it gets a little rough. And when I mean a little rough, it's not like we're going through like rapids or anything, but for the
Mhm.
kids, it's like they've never seen anything like this before, and they're screaming and yelling and flipping over. And we're trying to hold. Nathan has his dog. He's like got the dog in one arm, and he's got my son in the other arm because
Oh,
the kayak
jeez.
flipped over. And yeah, it was pretty entertaining from the adult perspective to kind of watch the show go down the river when you got 3 or 4 adults and three young kids and a dog and all of that.
Nice, nice. You mentioned you have a little one. I'm assuming he's at that age. Just maybe getting into the sport.
Yeah,
Um, as a dad, it's one of those things that's easier said than done.
sure.
Um, you have any perspectives or philosophies on getting him into
I'm
the sport?
I'm still learning, that
Mhm.
whole process, right? One he's last year was kind of his first year kind of getting involved. I don't want to say heavily, but where he was kind of consistently going to a couple practices a week, and we did 2 tournaments, just kind of little ones. I actually took him up to Pennsylvania where my parents live over Christmas, and he wrestled in his first one up in Pennsylvania, and then we did another one down here in Virginia. And one thing I did learn is, as a dad, it's hard to take the emotion out of it. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? Like, I get emotional enough when I'm coaching my college guys, and now all of a sudden my son's out there, and you can, you hear, these horror stories, right, of like youth athletics and coaches. But I think part of that is because most of the, especially in the sport of wrestling, right, I think even more so than others, but um, most of the time the coaches are parents. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? It's like
Right.
the dad of someone is out there coaching, and you got 2 dads in the corner with their kids out there. And then, you got mom and grandparents right on the mat, behind the coaches screaming and yelling. So, I mean, it's emotional stuff and it's tough. So one thing I've, tried to do is take the emotion out of it when he's out there and just kind of let him go out there. And obviously I'm there for him to help coach him through, and help teach him and learn, or to have a good experience. Right. And just I want him to love the sport. I think that's at his age is the most important thing, is just to get him to really love wrestling and want to do it. You know what I mean? Because you can't force people to do this sport, right? You got to want to do it, especially as you climb levels. It's got to come from that, internal fire a little bit, compared to someone forcing you to be out there to wrestle. And I'm not saying that, maybe on down the road, I might get a little bit harder on them, but right now we're just trying to create that love for the sport and just trying to get them to learn and want to do it. And then we can kind of see where it goes from there. But, he's around my guys, right? Around me, I'm sitting at home watching videos on my phone or whatever the case is, and he's right there with me, checking them out. So I think it's going well when it comes to that, and him getting to like it and love it. So yeah, I don't know. We'll see where it goes, but he's definitely, I say he doesn't have a choice to do it. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like the bad guy, right? I'm like, you're wrestling, but we kind of joke about that a little bit, my wife and I, and I'm like, oh, he's wrestling. He doesn't have much of a choice. You know what I mean? He doesn't know it yet, but and we'll see where it goes. But yeah, I think
any wrestlers you put on YouTube or on TV other than your own wrestlers to kind of brainwash them?
Not really. I don't think there's one. I don't know if he follows it or knows enough right now to be able to like pick certain guys out, but he definitely will see it, on my phone. And then like, I'll be sitting on the couch and he'll run over, when I'm watching it and say, oh, who's this? Or he goes by the colors of the singlets. That's how he picks his guys right now. And, what color singlet the guy's wearing and which one he likes better is who he's rooting for,
Nice.
Yeah.
Cool. Going back to Hill, and I don't know about you Edinboro guys, but I usually ask some guys, if they had an entrance song, what would they come into the arena to? If it's national finals or a duel. He was talking about Snake Farm, and I never had heard of that song, and I don't know if you've heard of it.
Yeah, I haven't. I probably have. I'm sure he's played it, and I probably heard it, but it doesn't really ring a bell to me a whole lot. No,
it's been stuck in my darn head. But do you have any songs that you would come out to?
You know what? I grew up like listening to like AC/DC, right? My dad was a big AC/DC guy, so it would probably be something from AC/DC. Maybe like I'm trying to think like I don't know if if this is what it's called or not, but like For Those About to Rock, that song AC/DC, like something like that.
Mm-hmm.
It'd be a cool one to come out and get ready to do some scrap and some combat.
All right, cool. Yeah, check out that Snake Farm.
I will. I'll have to look that up.
It's so Hill. It's funny. I mentioned I never heard of it, and I mentioned to my brother. Like, you heard? He's like, and he just starts to laugh. And
I'm gonna look it up and send it to Hill and be like, "What do you listening to this again these days?"
Yeah. So, you have any like book recommendations on leadership or for coaches that are just getting into the sport or anything or social media or anything?
A good one that I took a lot from is Extreme Ownership. I don't know if you've heard
Jacko?
it. Yep. It's a good one. Yep. Just talks about and breaking it down, just basically everything being, your fault, good or bad, right? If you have guys that aren't performing or aren't doing something, don't point the finger at them, point the finger at you first, and if everyone operates like that and thinks like that from the top down, then you really don't have a choice other than to grow and develop, whether it be as from a leadership perspective or, someone down the chain a little bit. If you're in the coaching world, if it's the head coach, the assistant coach, the guys on the team, if they all believe it's their own fault and their responsibility, then, I think that's a good thing, right? If the guy's not making weight or having trouble with his weight, not only is it his fault, but it's my fault too. You know what I mean? Why is he having trouble? Am I not providing enough resource for him? Am I not, telling him to do the right things? Do we have to make an adjustment? Do I have to recognize it? And then it's his responsibility to follow the plan too. If we're putting a plan in place, it's it's his job to follow it, his responsibility, and it's my responsibility to make sure he's following it and it being the right plan. So yeah, it's a good one. I think that would probably be my number one recommendation.
Yeah, he's pretty motivating. Listen to him. It's hard not to
Yeah.
get amped up.
Yeah.
Do you see a lot of correlation, VMI being, military based, like, with his background?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think our guys, someone like that, our guys can resonate with a little bit. You know what I mean? Just having that background and them going through it. Obviously, I think it was very different levels, right? That he was involved in and what our guys are involved in now. But still, I think the same principles apply, the same mentality applies, and kind of that honor, integrity, and kind of that pride to, prepare and do things the right way. So yeah, I mean, I think it's a good option for our guys and definitely someone that they can, look up to.
Yeah, he does the audio version too. It's pretty intense, so
Really?
it's definitely a worth listening to with his
Yeah.
stern voice, and he gets pretty into it. So, um, any questions for me or anyone you recommend to have on the show?
Um, hmm. Yeah, I think someone that has a really good perspective on things, that's got a lot of experience, Kevin LaValle. If you can get
Kevin LaValle.
Kevin LaValle, he's an assistant coach at Bucknell right now. He wrestled at Bucknell. He's actually was the last guy to ever beat Kyle Dake in a college wrestling match.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it was in I believe the 2011 EIWA finals.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then he
I'll
moved
have
on.
to.
He graduated from Bucknell, spent some time at Minnesota with the Gophers in some roles up there, continued to train for a handful of years. I think at one time he was ranked like 13th in the world. He had some pretty good success, on that kind of senior international circuit, and ended up coming back to Bucknell. And I spent a couple years with him up there when we were on staff together. And he's a great guy, good guy, knows the sport really well, and he's an interesting guy too. He would be he'd give your listeners something good to listen to for sure.
Okay. Anything I should ask him?
Um, hmm. I would talk to him about Lyman, Colorado. He's from Lyman, Colorado. It's
Okay.
kind of a small farm town east of Denver. You think Colorado, you think of mountains, right? Well, this is
Right. Right.
in Colorado's flat and it's like the plains, and he's takes a lot of pride in coming from out there. So he would be able to give you I'm sure some good stories about Lyman, Colorado.
Okay. Cool. Cool. All right. Anything else you have for us tonight?
No, I guess just, I appreciate you having me on and just talking a little bit about VMI. Any chance, like you, I think there's a lot of people out there that aren't too familiar with VMI, and
Mm-hmm.
time I get a chance to, share some information and some knowledge about, our spot's a good thing. And just appreciate what you're doing. I think some positive conversation, and like you were saying before, and kind of our circumstances right now and just kind of the world we're living in, is great. So I appreciate that. And I'm a positive guy. You don't really see me kind of, tipping one way or the other too much. I'm usually kind of just even keel. And so it's good. I appreciate you doing what you're doing.
Yeah. Where can they find you guys on the social media? What where can I just search
Yeah.
that or?
Yep. Just, VMI_wrestling. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
That's kind of all of our handles are like that. So
Awesome. Well, thanks for your time tonight. I
you
appreciate it.
got it. Yeah, no problem.